Modern motorcycles are fragile electronic traps. One failed sensor or computer glitch, and your $30,000 machine is a dead paperweight. You cannot fix code on the side of the road. But before software ruined riding, we had carburetors, pure mechanical brilliance. No digital lag, no diagnostic laptops. We are exposing 10 legendary carbureted motorcycles that boast flawless reliability and completely humiliate modern fuel injection. Because physical brass will always outlast a silicon microchip. Let's go. Number 10. The Yamaha Vstar 650. We begin our countdown with a metric cruiser that completely mastered the art of low-maintenance, bulletproof reliability. The Yamaha Vstar 650 is an absolute staple of the used motorcycle market because its mechanical design is so deeply, fundamentally sound. The engine is a 649cc air-cooled V-twin. It breathes through a pair of Mikuni constant velocity carburetors. The cold start reliability on this heavy machine is absolutely flawless. You simply pull the manual choke knob located securely near your left knee, hit the mechanical starter button, and the engine immediately fires into a steady, rhythmic, deeply satisfying idle. There is no waiting for a high-pressure electric fuel pump to prime, and absolutely no computer trying to aggressively calculate the ambient air temperature and barometric pressure. It simply uses raw physical vacuum to pull a rich fuel mixture through the N-Richener circuit. The throttle feel is pure mechanical tension because your right wrist is directly pulling a braided steel cable that mechanically opens the heavy brass butterfly valves inside the carburetor throats. The power delivery is incredibly smooth and perfectly linear, right off idle. The simplicity of this carb system is its greatest asset. It uses pure, undeniable gravity to feed fuel from the steel gas tank directly down into the float bowls. The maintenance accessibility is fantastic. You can easily access the knurled idle adjustment screw with a heavy leather-gloved hand while sitting at a red light, manually setting your engine idle exactly where you want it. Long-term durability is legendary, with these air-cooled, low-compression engines easily clearing 100,000 miles without ever requiring a top-end rebuild. Riders absolutely trust this setup because it completely avoids the violent, snatchy on-off throttle response that plagues cheaply engineered, modern fuel-injected bikes that instantly cut fuel the second you roll off the throttle. Originally retailing for roughly $6,000, you can easily find the Yamaha Vstar 650 on the used market for between $2,000 and $4,500. The Vstar is a perfectly reliable asphalt cruiser, but what if you desperately need a machine that can survive being dropped down a rocky mountain cliff, completely submerged in a muddy river, and still start on the very first kick? Our next carbureted legend is an off-road weapon that operates completely without a battery. Number 9, the Honda XR400R. Produced from 1996 to 2004, this machine is universally revered by hardcore off-road survivalists because its engine architecture and analog fueling system are fundamentally impervious to electronic failure. The beating heart of this unkillable dirt tractor is a 397cc air-cooled single-cylinder engine. It breathes heavily through a single, brutally simple 36mm Cahin piston valve carburetor. The cold start reliability is a specific, sacred mechanical ritual. The sheer simplicity of this system completely humiliates modern, fuel-injected dirt bikes. Modern high-strung enduro bikes require heavy lithium batteries, vulnerable and deeply complex wiring harnesses, and delicate microscopic fuel injectors that easily clog with microscopic dirt particles the moment a fuel filter tears. The XR400R does not even have a battery to die. The maintenance accessibility is a veteran mechanic's dream. The Cahin carburetor sits completely exposed on the right side of the engine block. You can literally loosen 2 basic hose clamps, rotate the entire carburetor outwards towards your knee, and physically change the brass main jet or the pilot jet in under 5 minutes with a single flathead screwdriver. This long-term, unyielding durability is exactly why serious off-road riders still deeply trust carbs. They are completely immune to water-induced electrical shorts, stator failures, and the complex, trip-ending sensor failures that plague modern electronic fuel injection. While the original sticker price of the Honda XR400R sat at $5,299, expect to pay anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 today. The Honda XR is an unkillable single-cylinder dirt legend. If you've been here a while, you already know what Iron Pulse is about. We drop the essentials, old school, rider-made style, the cap for long miles and windy days, the T for for the garage, the ride, and everywhere in between. The Mug, for early starts and late nights planning the next run. No hype, just the mark. 20% off right now. Link in the description down below. But what if you want a massive oil-cooled inline-4 that produces tire-shredding torque with a bank of 4 perfectly synchronized carburetors? Our next motorcycle is an absolute hooligan machine built for pure street dominance. Number 8, the Suzuki Bandit 1200. If you genuinely want to experience raw, unfiltered mechanical brute force, you must ride the Suzuki Bandit 1200. This massive motorcycle was built during an era when Japanese manufacturers aggressively prioritized massive mid-range torque over complex, restrictive electronic riding aids. It is an absolute powerhouse that relies on a heavily overbuilt analog fueling system to deliver immediate, terrifying acceleration without asking a computer for permission. The engine is a massive 1,157cc air and oil-cooled inline-4, heavily derived directly from the legendary race-winning GSXR sport bikes of the late 1980s. It is fueled by a massive bank of 4 Mikuni BST-36SS carburetors. The cold start reliability is magnificent. You pull the cable-actuated choke lever securely mounted on the left handlebar, the heavy starter motor aggressively spins the massive forged crankshaft, and the 4 huge cylinders instantly roar to life, settling into a deep, menacing mechanical rumble. The engine character is purely defined by its deeply aggressive throttle feel. Unlike modern fuel-injected bikes that use complex ride-by-wire computer algorithms to artificially smooth out your throttle inputs and actively restrict power delivery for safety, the Bandit gives you exactly what you physically asked for. The maintenance on a bank of 4 carburetors sounds heavily intimidating to the uninitiated, but it is actually deeply rewarding mechanical work. Synchronizing these 4 carbs using a simple set of analog vacuum gauges or fluid manometers ensures the engine idles perfectly smooth. Modern fuel injection systems suffer from failing throttle position sensors and clogged micro-injectors that absolutely require expensive dealership diagnostic computers to troubleshoot. The Suzuki Bandit 1200 demanded $7,400 brand new, but current secondary market values range heavily between $2,000 and $4,000. Do you still synchronize your modern motorcycles or fragile electronic traps? Smash that like button right now and let us know your absolute favorite brand of vacuum gauges or carb tuning tools in the comments section below. Number 7, the Triumph Bonneville T100 early 2000s. When Triumph triumphantly returned to the modern motorcycle market in the early 2000s, they knew they had to perfectly capture the absolute essence of classic British motorcycling. The early 2000s Triumph Bonneville T100 achieved this incredibly difficult goal not by faking it with plastic covers, but by utilizing genuine old-school analog carburetors to deliver a riding experience that modern, heavily restricted retro-styled bikes completely fail to replicate. The engine is a 790cc air-cooled parallel twin with a 360-degree firing interval. It breathes heavily through twin Kahin 36mm constant velocity carburetors. The cold start reliability is an absolute joy. Because it uses constant velocity carburetors, a flexible rubber vacuum diaphragm automatically raises the fuel slide based precisely on raw engine demand, rather than strictly matching the butterfly valve angle. This completely eliminates the harsh, jerky fuel cut feeling that severely plagues modern Euro 5 compliant fuel-injected motorcycles when you close and aggressively reopen the throttle mid-corner. The sheer simplicity of this analog carb system is beautiful. There are absolutely no oxygen sensors buried deep in the exhaust pipes, trying to actively lean out the fuel mixture to pass strict government emissions tests, a process which causes modern air-cooled bikes to run incredibly hot and uncomfortably lean. The Bonneville runs cool, rich, and deeply happy. Maintenance accessibility is perfect. The twin Kahin carbs are completely exposed to the open air, unhidden by massive plastic fairings or restrictive frame spars. You can easily pull the 4 Phillips head screws on the float bowls to quickly clean the pilot jets in under 10 minutes. Back in the early 2000s, the Triumph Bonneville T100 carried an MSRP of roughly $8,000, whereas used examples now effortlessly command $4,000 to $6,000. The Bonneville is a polite gentleman's ride, but what if you took a literal, race-winning superbike engine, stripped off the heavy aerodynamic fairings, and bolted on 4 massive carburetors for absolute street dominance? Our next machine is a high horsepower legend that refuses to be tamed by a computer. Number 6. The Yamaha FZ1 Generation 1. In 2001, Yamaha did something absolutely brilliant and entirely unhinged. They took the insanely powerful, race-winning 20-valve engine directly out of their flagship YZF-R1 superbike, slightly retuned the camshaft profiles for massive street torque, and stuffed it into a comfortable, upright, tubular steel chassis. But the true genius of the Generation 1, Yamaha FZ1, was that Yamaha completely rejected the early, deeply flawed, and incredibly jerky fuel injection systems of that specific era, choosing instead to rely on highly advanced, perfectly tuned analog carburetors. The engine is a 998cc liquid-cooled 20-valve inline-4. It is fueled by a massive, highly complex bank of 4 Mikuni BSR 37 carburetors. The cold start reliability is legendary. A quick affirmative pull of the bar-mounted choke lever results in an immediate, roaring idle that warms up the massive block in seconds. The maintenance accessibility is remarkably straightforward for such a high-performance, 4-cylinder machine. Yamaha did creatively include a basic throttle position sensor strictly to help optimize the ignition timing curve across the rev range, but the actual fueling remains purely mechanical. The long-term durability of the FZ1 block is astonishing, with these 20-valve engines routinely surpassing 100,000 miles without ever requiring major internal servicing. Riders still hunt down these specific first-generation models primarily because they utterly humiliate the complex electronics of modern hyper-nakeds. Yamaha originally asked $8,499 for the Generation 1 FZ1, yet you can comfortably pick one up right now for $2,500 to $4,000. The FZ1 is an incredibly fast street fighter. Quick pit stop. I went out and put together a short list of the best rider tools and gadgets, the stuff that actually saves your day on the road. Here are all the essentials. It's all linked in the description under Grab the Gear here. It doesn't cost you anything extra, it just helps support the channel. Now back to it. But what if you want the ultimate dual sport tractor that utilizes a single massive carburetor to literally cross remote continents? Our next motorcycle relies on a gravity-fed fuel system that absolutely refuses to quit. Number 5, the Suzuki DR650 SE. If you are seriously planning to ride a heavily loaded motorcycle across the remote, scorching deserts of Africa or the desolate, unforgiving rocky plains of Mongolia, you must choose a machine that cannot be disabled by a broken computer. You must choose the Suzuki DR650 SE. The engine is a 644cc air and oil-cooled single-cylinder. It utilizes a single, massive Mikuni BST-40 carburetor. The cold start reliability is absolute perfection. You pull the physical choke lever on the handlebars, firmly hit the electric starter button, and the massive piston immediately begins its steady, reassuring, thumping rhythm. The engine character is purely defined by its incredibly predictable tractor torque. The throttle feel is heavy and deeply connected to the rear wheel. The sheer simplicity of this carb system is its ultimate superpower. Modern heavyweight adventure motorcycles are incredibly complex, heavily relying on massive electronic fuel pumps located deep inside the fuel tank. If that electric pump burns out, which they frequently do when owners constantly run them low on fuel, depriving the pump of its liquid cooling, the modern adventure bike is completely dead. The DR650 relies purely on gravity. Raw fuel flows naturally from the physical petcock directly down into the carburetor bowl. There is literally nothing electronic to fail. Maintenance accessibility is so brilliant that you can quickly loosen the rubber intake boots and rotate the entire carburetor sideways to completely change the brass main and pilot jets without ever removing the unit from the motorcycle frame. Brand new pricing for the Suzuki DR650 SE historically hovered around $6,000, but the modern used market will aggressively ask you for $2,000 to $5,000 depending on condition. The DR650 is a rugged dirt tractor, but what if you want a high-revving, lightweight sport bike that expertly taught an entire generation how to ride, using twin carburetors that never fail? Our next motorcycle screams to 13,000 RPM entirely on analog fuel delivery. Number 4, the Kawasaki Ninja 250R pre-2008. For decades, the Kawasaki Ninja 250R was the absolute gold standard for beginner motorcycles. The engine is a 248cc liquid-cooled parallel twin. It breathes heavily through twin Keihin CV K30 carburetors. The cold start reliability is famously cold-natured, meaning it absolutely requires the heavy use of the manual choke lever on crisp, cold mornings to enrich the fuel mixture. But once choked, it fires up perfectly every single time without fail. The engine character is an absolute joy. This tiny overbuilt engine demands to be aggressively revved out to its staggering 13,000 RPM redline. The mechanical simplicity of this twin carb system makes it the absolute best platform in the world for a new rider to safely learn foundational motorcycle mechanics. Synchronizing the two carbs requires only a single adjustment screw located between the two bodies. Taking off the float bowls and cleaning the brass pilot jets beautifully teaches you the fundamental principles of internal combustion fluid dynamics. The long-term durability is absolutely legendary. These little engines are mercilessly bounced off the rev limiter daily by inexperienced new riders on the highway, and they simply refuse to blow up. The Ninja 250 proves that a well-tuned set of analog carburetors will always deliver a smoother, more engaging throttle response than a cheap, heavily compromised, budget electronic fuel injection system. The Kawasaki Ninja 250R launched with an incredibly low price of $2,999, and you can still snag one today for a mere $1,000 to $2,500. You start your riding journey on a legendary Kawasaki Ninja 250? Let us know in the comments below and tell us exactly how many miles you managed to put on that unkillable little parallel twin engine. Number 3, the Honda Valkyrie GL 1500C. In the late 1990s, Honda engineers did something completely unhinged and magnificent. They took the incredibly smooth, massive flat-six engine from their flagship Goldwing touring barge, stripped away all the heavy plastic aerodynamic fairings, and created an absolute muscle cruiser masterpiece, the Honda Valkyrie. The engine is a massive 1,520cc, liquid-cooled, horizontally opposed flat-six. It utilizes a bank of 6 Keihin 28mm CV carburetors, with one specific carburetor dedicated to feeding every single cylinder. The cold start reliability is magnificent. When you firmly pull the mechanical choke lever and hit the starter, the massive flat-six engine fires up instantly and sounds exactly like an air-cooled vintage Porsche 911. The engine character and throttle feel are the stuff of absolute automotive legend. Because there are 6 independent butterfly valves physically snapping open simultaneously via a complex steel linkage, the throttle response is stunningly immediate. While visually tuning and synchronizing a complex bank of 6 carburetors sounds like an absolute nightmare for a home mechanic, the honest truth about the Valkyrie is its staggering long-term durability. Because Honda heavily engineered the solid steel linkage system so brilliantly, once these 6 carburetors are perfectly synchronized with a 6-bank vacuum gauge, they almost never go out of sync. The raw simplicity of the mechanical fuel delivery means there are no high-pressure fuel injectors to constantly clog, and no complex mass airflow sensors to suddenly fail. Buying the Honda Valkyrie GL 1500C fresh off the showroom floor originally cost $13,999, but it is currently valued between $4,000 and $7,000. The Valkyrie is a deeply complex 6-cylinder masterpiece, but our number 2 bike is a legendary muscle bike that uses its massive carburetors to deliver absolute hooligan power while maintaining stunning retro style. It is the big green monster that dominated the street. Number 2, the Kawasaki ZRX1200R. The Kawasaki ZRX1200R is the ultimate homage to the violent superbike racing era of the early 1980s, famously ridden to victory by the legendary Eddie Lawson. But beneath its stunning retro paint job and iconic boxy bikini fairing lies an incredibly powerful, heavily overbuilt engine that relies entirely on massive analog carburetors to deliver massive tire-smoking performance. The engine is a 1,164cc liquid-cooled inline-4. It breathes heavily through a massive bank of 4 Keihin C VK36 carburetors. The cold start reliability is flawless. Kawasaki brilliantly implemented the K-Trick system, which simply added a basic throttle position sensor strictly to the mechanical carbs to perfectly optimize the electronic ignition timing, giving it the perfect blend of modern starting reliability and pure analog fueling. The engine character is purely defined by a fat, meaty, incredibly aggressive torque curve. When you aggressively roll onto the throttle, the massive mechanical slides lift, and the engine pulls with a ferocity that modern ride-by-wire systems actively prevent. The maintenance accessibility is fantastic. The 4 carburetors are highly exposed and incredibly easy to unbolt and pull off for deep cleaning, and the heavy rubber vacuum diaphragms are incredibly robust, easily lasting for decades without tearing or degrading. The long-term durability of this engine block is absolutely legendary in the underground drag racing community. The original retail tag for the Kawasaki ZRX1200R was $7,899, while collectors currently pay anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000. The ZRX is a green hooligan monster, but our #1 motorcycle is the absolute definition of zero maintenance reliability. It is a 4-cylinder legend that requires absolutely no valve adjustments and features analog carburetors that will literally outlive the human race. Number 1. The Honda CB750 Nighthawk, 1991 to 2003. We conclude our extensive list with a classic motorcycle that perfectly embodies the core manifesto. Simple machines equal reliable machines. The Honda CB750 Nighthawk, proudly produced from 1991 to 2003, is universally acknowledged by veteran mechanics as one of the most indestructible, deeply dependable, and heavily over-engineered motorcycles ever built by human hands. The engine is a 747cc air-cooled inline-4. It is flawlessly fueled by a bank of 4 Keihin 34mm VE carburetors. The throttle feel is perfectly linear, deeply predictable, and incredibly forgiving. But the true genius of the Nighthawk's overbuilt design is its absolute refusal to require regular maintenance. Honda utilized hydraulic valve lifters deep inside the cylinder head. This specific engineering choice means you never ever have to perform expensive, tedious, labor-intensive valve clearance adjustments. And the sheer simplicity of this Keihin carb system is breathtaking. There is no high-pressure electric fuel pump to burn out inside the gas tank. There are no delicate, microscopic electronic fuel injectors to severely clog with ethanol phase separation. There is no complex ECU computer to suddenly brick itself due to a voltage spike. It is just raw engine vacuum, solid brass jets, and gravity-fed fuel dropping from the petcock. As long as you keep clean, fresh fuel flowing, these Keihin carburetors will run flawlessly forever. Modern fuel injection systems are heavily designed for planned obsolescence. They are packed with proprietary closed-loop sensors that are impossible to bypass when they inevitably fail on the road. The Honda Nighthawk relies entirely on the unbreakable laws of fluid dynamics. It is a motorcycle you can confidently ride entirely across the country, knowing with absolute certainty that its purely mechanical heart will never let you down. With an original factory price of roughly $5,000, the Honda CB750 Nighthawk is an absolute steal at $2,000 to $3,500 on the used market. If you are absolutely tired of modern electronics completely ruining the raw purity of motorcycling, click that subscribe button right now and share this deep dive with a fellow rider who deeply respects old-school mechanics. We are dedicated to exposing the harsh truth about dealership traps. Ride safe, keep those analog carburetors perfectly clean, and we will see you in the next video.